Rise and shine, rise and shine. I look like it's morning. Let me take these off. I hope everyone had a wonderful night and such. Don't worry about my background. It is a little messy. Instead of doing videos separately, I wanted to do them. I wanted to finish what I was saying about friendships. I wanted to do that today instead because I wanted to do it on live today because I wanted to be able to just get to the conclusion of my story, right? So yeah, the whole topic of discussion is obviously, as I said in every video I posted yesterday, we see the problem, so what's the solution? And I'm going to say that probably throughout this live and everything. But I hope everyone has had a wonderful night and everything like that, is enjoying their week, is receiving so many blessings and abundance and things of that nature throughout this season as well as throughout the last season. So yes, we see the problem, so what's the solution? Friends, the question is, why do friends come to ends? And I left off on my transition from high school, but I did recall and remember a couple of things that I didn't mention yesterday. When I was in Virginia, I had I mentioned about the 3 boys when I was in art class in elementary school and how they were, I guess, being a little petty bully with the spitball thing and everything like that. But one of the guys ended up liking me, and there was a girl who wanted to fight me for this because I guess she was his girlfriend before I got there. So his sister, the boy that liked me had an older sister. She became aware of who I was, and she decided, hey, I don't like that they want to, bully you because my brother likes you. So she basically told them that if they wanted to fight anybody, that they could fight her because she didn't want the girl, I guess, to be with her brother. So that was a kind of thing like in Virginia where I had experienced someone defending me. However, I realized that my dad never liked that kind of stuff. Like, he always taught me, fight your own battles, type of thing. Learn from experience. So anytime that I had my own altercations, I would anticipate learning from the experience rather than just trying to have somebody else fight my battle. If I was going to have to go through them girls jumping me, it was a thing where after my father realized that I was a target, obviously, he taught me things to be able to defend myself. So speaking from a point of view at this adult age where most parents already know this, but you want to teach your child major defense mechanisms. You want to teach your child awareness, precision, and at a young age too, so that they can be able to grow with this and also learn how to not be like, I wasn't an antagonizer. I wasn't an instigator. I didn't try to start stuff with anybody because I don't like drama. I never did. But sometimes drama gravitates to us. And any of you who are parents and have children, whether or not your child is drama filled or if they attract drama or if they are a quiet child or reserved, but they unfortunately may attract energy from children who have negative, a negative lifestyle, and they may create like this tension between those children. You're gonna always have the victim and the the aggressor type of situation. But children who are growing in environments where they always have to defend themselves and they always have to be on the defense, they become that way because of the fact that that's how they are. That's the environment that they're in. They're always having to feel like they got to defend themselves. But if they're around people who always defend them and they don't ever have to fend for themselves, then they grow up thinking that they got to always call on their cousins or call on somebody. Now, I had plenty of family members that I could have called on. But like I said, my father instilled in me, fight my own battles. Anything that is I'm up against, figure my way through that instead of trying to always bring people into my mess. So that's something that I do. It's something that I did, and that's something that I continue to believe is necessary. I don't feel like I would reject anybody being, in my defense, though, because like I said, that experience I had when I was a child from her, that really changed my whole perspective about friends too, from how it was when I was in the county in Maryland. It was just different with certain people in Virginia. And yeah, so that was that experience. Now fast forward to where I left off yesterday, which was high school, transitioning from the Eastern Shore of Maryland, Salisbury, back to the other side of the bridge, but not technically home, not Baltimore, but we moved back to the county in Severn, because that's where my parents were able to find affordable, nice home, and they felt comfortable with being there more than anything else, especially because the base is right near where they chose to, relocate. And it was convenient for both of their jobs. And we was back near Baltimore, so it was closer to family. So if need be, we had family to lean on if necessary. But my parents pretty much did a good job with having each other back throughout the process of nurturing and growing themselves, establishing themselves, finding stability, and raising their kids. So when we got to the other side, I started going to Glen Burnie High School. I think I mentioned that. And at this point, I was in my junior year. I was going into my junior year. So I wanted to, it was like my 10th grade. I think it was like part 10th grade going into junior year type of thing. Because I think we left the summer after my 9th grade year in Salisbury. So when we got up to Maryland, I just remember wanting to put myself in position for what I wanted to do. I immediately started working, and I started my first job type thing when I was 13, babysitting. So I was already used to making money, and I wanted to do that more. So once I was old enough and got of age to get a work permit, that was my main focus when I got to Glen Burnie. I wanted to just start making money so that I could get out of my parents' house and so that I could get on my own 2 feet. And like I said, when I was in Salisbury, people were showing me how to drive and all that. So by the time I got to high school, to the upperclassmen portion, I was ready to go, geared up and ready. So sorry, I'm trying to do my head and all this at the same time. What do you call those people? We're talking about friends and their ends. So that transition, once again, I tried to tell as many of the people that I considered friends that I was leaving and that we were moving. But around this time, MySpace started to come out. I think it was MySpace, and I was hip to Facebook, but I didn't make a Facebook until I finished high school, because at that time, Facebook was being told as being a college student type of connector thing. So by the time I was, making my MySpace page and all of that used to be fun. I used to like making my little MySpace pages and making, you actually could learn how to code if you had a MySpace, because you had to put the little stuff on there to make your page look like you wanted and stuff. MySpace was low-key teaching us how to code and use JavaScript to create websites, believe it or not. I feel as though, because I learned a lot about making websites because I had a MySpace page. But so the one thing that I noticed when I transitioned to Glen Burnie also is my maturity level increased so much, because I was pretty much to the point where I was fed up with having to keep transitioning and changing friends and changing scenes and all of that. I was just ready to be done with this part of my life, to be honest. Got a job at McDonald's when I got my work permit. Immediately when I hit 14 or 15, paid for my own, driving school stuff, booked my own thing, asked my mom to help me get a bank account. I used to ask my parents to help me do stuff that I didn't know how to do because I knew I wanted certain things. I just didn't know how to do certain things because I was a kid, obviously. So, yeah, I would just ask questions. If they didn't know, I would ask the adults at my schools. I would ask my counselor. I would ask my teachers. I would ask questions so that I know how to shift myself into where I'm trying to get to, right? So that's what I did. And I ended up getting a job at McDonald's. And then there was a guy that was working at that worked at the hospital, and he went to my school and we were in class together. So I'm like, can you help me get a job at the hospital? And I don't know how he pulled the strings and he helped me get the job. So I was able to work 2 jobs from my upperclassmen years in high school at McDonald's and at the hospital. And while I was doing that, I was able to, it was Baltimore Washington Medical Center. So yeah, that was fun times. Shouts out to Miss Judy, Miss Fran, and all them, because Miss Judy passed away, but ultimately, like, she was the sweetest manager ever. Like, she really helped guide me through. Miss Pam was my manager at McDonald's, and I used to go to different McDonald's locations that were franchised by that particular one I worked at. And at McDonald's, I met a friend there. Her name was Niche. We still cool to this day. But basically, the friendships that I built around this time frame, I didn't have an issue with keeping those because it was a transition into adulthood. So I made a couple friends at McDonald's. One of them, she's somewhere out in the world, not know where she is. The other, I met her at high school, but she was we were different. She had more interest in, like, the popularity. I was never really, like, I didn't care if people knew me or didn't know me. It wasn't really that type of thing. I always felt like people who gravitate to you or gravitated to me, it was genuine love, because it's not a reason to, it wasn't a reason to do extra stuff to be able to have a friendship. So when I was gaining friends at this point, it was just like, whatever goes. Either we gonna flow or we gonna grow apart. And I just accepted that. I got to a point of acceptance with friendships by the time I reached 10th and 11th and 12th grade. And then on top of that, I wanted to get more involved in programs that would elevate me and my purpose, because I was really at this point trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. So there was this woman that was in there was a talent search program in Maryland where they would recruit children from schools and put us in this program called Jumpstart. And Jumpstart allowed me to take college courses while I was in high school. So I took college courses at Anne Arundel Community College in my 11th and 12th grade years, because my school schedule, I had completed so much of my coursework that my school schedule was minimal. Like, I was able to get out of school by like 10 o'clock every day. So by that time, I would just go to the college and do those classes. I took a psychology class. My first classes that I took were psychology classes and music classes. And the music classes were because I used to play a piano when I was little. So I wanted to kind of get back into learning more about instruments and what other instruments I wanted to get into. But that just was, for fun, but ultimately also to get the general credits that I learned I would need as prerequisites for school. I also took AP Lit and Lang and AP Euro and AP Calculus so that I could be able to test out of certain classes and use that towards credit towards college, because that's what we were told we could do. I was trying to make the college experience as effective as I could, but not waste time, in doing so. And initially I went to college for business. So I know this is about friends and their ends, but I'm talking about me as a person right now and stuff I did during this time frame, because before I get into detail about the friendships, I want it to be known that that wasn't my focus. I was solely focused on the growth and elevation of myself from transitioning from high school to college, because I knew that this was coming. And that's where my attention was. And I had been working at the hospital. When I started working at that hospital, I really was able to see, like, I liked the environment of being somewhere where people could come and get, you know, help from being sick. There were a lot of things in my family, you know, as far as health issues that I wanted to understand, you know. So this is when my interest of the healthcare arena really started to heighten. So back to the friends. So at this time, I was meeting people and making friends, not just in school. I was making friends in the workforces as well, and places that I had been going outside of school. And I was getting out more, being able to go to parties more. I was older. At this point, there was a group of girls at Glen Burnie that I ended up being cool with. We all went to Ocean City together for senior week. There was this thing called Senior Week. For our senior year, we went to Ocean City. I was friends with the person I went to my junior prom with. Me and him were really close, and you know, it was platonic. We were cool enough. He asked me out to the junior prom, and I was like, yeah. I was like, because I like dressing up and, you know, getting cute and stuff. So I was like, yeah, I definitely will go. So that was fun to do that little thing, you know. It had me a nice little sleek, elegant black dress. And what else was it? So then by the time 12th grade came, like I said, I went to my senior prom too. You know, rest in peace to Kenny. That was my prom date for my 12th grade year. And I was made aware that he passed away in 2019. But me and him, the reason why we was like, we gonna go is because I wasn't gonna go at first because I couldn't find nobody to go with. Then I was like, do I want to go alone? I barely been at this school. I barely know anybody. So I was like, maybe I shouldn't go. Then I was in science class or something like that with Kenny. And he's like, you going to prom? And I was like, nah, I don't even know who I'm going to go with. I don't got no friends, nothing to go with. You know, all of the people that I am considering friends have someone to go with. So he pretty much was like, yeah, let's go together. He was like, I'll take you, be my date. And I had two other friends. Both of them were guys, but they had dates already. So we all said, let's pitch in. And all six of us put in for us to go to prom in a limo so that we could, you know, and our families supported us and everything. And it was a good vibe for real for my senior year. Yeah, so it just came together in a way where I was able to still get that full experience in the way that I wanted to, you know. And it would have been okay to go by myself, but it just turned out I had a friend to go with. So that's how that went for that side of friendship. As far as other guys, it was probably a guy that was in my history class. Matter of fact, he was on a football team. We was close. We had a dynamic, interesting friendship because it's like we liked each other, but we didn't type thing. It was weird, but we ended up being cool. Now for the female friendships. Like I said, there was a group of girls that I went to Ocean City with for senior week, my 12th grade year. But before that, I didn't really have a lot of girls that I was cool with, except for one of my friends that was she was in my geometry class. I had to take I used to be good at math, but by the time I got to high school, I was fed up with math. I ain't gonna lie. I had to take this geometry class, right? And one of my friends that was in that class with me, she was actually a year younger than me. But her and this other boy in that class, they used to get on my daggone nerves because they always wanted to cheat. I'm like, if y'all don't go home and study, I'm trying to tell you. But we ended up being cool because I did the track team, and her brother also did track, and they were from Warner Robins, Georgia. So yeah, we was all three on the track team and everything. We didn't become friends though until one time, you know, my mom, she had a hard time coming to pick me up one time because she worked late hours and stuff. So this particular person's mother noticed that I was, sitting outside after track practice for a pretty long time. So one day she just was like, I want to meet your mom and try to see if I can, help and maybe take you home after practice so that you don't have to be sitting out here so late after hours. So that was really nice of her. I always to this day cherish the relationship that I built with her as, like a secondary mom, an auntie, a godmom, or whatever. I, put her in that position in my mental because of how she extended her assistance to me. And she was in the Army. So by the time, I finished high school. Oh, yeah, by the time I finished high school and everything like that, and I was trying to figure out my way through life, I was making faulty decisions and everything. She helped me get into the Army, but that's a little later. So her daughter, we ended up being cool because of the dynamic of how her mom stepped into my life and everything. And assisted my parents. I'm making a mess. So by the time I got to there was this guy that I met, and this is the person that I ended up being in an abusive relationship with after high school. There were other guys I had met, but I met this other guy the same time I met him. It was at a party, and I was talking to the other guy first, but it was like we just stopped talking. We just ended up stopped talking, and my cousin had liked him. It was just a messy situation, and he lived in Baltimore, so since I was in the county living, I was just like, all right, let me just date somebody who's near me and who's, closer and whatever. And he was a cool guy though. I wish I would have had more opportunity to actually date him, but he had a lot of other girls in his face anyway. He's a pretty boy. And it's funny because his brother ended up working at the hospital too, and I didn't know it was his brother at first, and then I realized it was his brother, and I was like, oh yeah, we can't talk because you are brothers to the guy that I was actually going on a date before. So I don't do stuff like that. That's mixy and that's weird. So I ended up dating the other guy I met at that same party. And fast forward, this is how cycles work, y'all. Because remember, I was telling you stories yesterday about how I had friends that would end up dating guys that I had found out like me or had already dated, and then vice versa. So in this particular situation, I found out that the guy that I started dating, we probably like a few months deep at this point. He was coming to my job at McDonald's and everything to see me. So one day he came to my job, and while he was there, something happened to my vehicle. So my friend who I was telling you, whose mom came into my life and helped me a lot, she came to help me with my vehicle, to call her AAA or help me call my insurance and everything, and show me how to do that when something's wrong with your car. I basically learned how to work with insurance companies at this time. But while doing so, she brought, my friend, her daughter. And that's when she's like, my friend's like, do you know I dated that boy? I fooled around with that boy or whatever. And I was like, for real? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, dang, I wish I knew this beforehand. But I was, private about my business. Like when I got into that relationship with him, we wasn't fully vested in a relationship yet, but he made it seem like he wanted to pursue me, so I gave him the leeway to do so. But then when I found out that he used to mess with my friend, I'm like, come on now, dog. And he didn't know, I didn't know, she didn't know. So it got to that point where we all just decided, like, he was like, well, I like her and I want to, date her. And she was like, I don't care. It wasn't nothing like that anyway. So that's what it ended up being. So me and him still ended up, dating or whatever. So as that went along, she ended up dating his cousin. And I don't know what really happened. I'm not going to talk on her situation with his cousin, but she ended up dating his cousin. Things happened with that. And then another girl from the McDonald's that I worked at ended up dating the same cousin. It was drama, y'all. It was just so much drama. And I don't like drama. So when all of this was going on and the guy I was dating started to get like really like, I don't know, he was starting to rush our relationship, like to the point where he kept on wanting to have, sexual stuff going on. And I'm like, listen, I'm only 17. I'm good. Like, let's chill out, get to know each other. And he just kept trying to press like this relationship thing and wanting to commit. And I'm just like, we are young, you know. There's not a reason to rush saying that we are going to be with each other for the rest of our lives, or putting no stipulations on one another right now. And I didn't like doing that. It just wasn't that type of thing for me, and I wasn't focused on that relationship as much as I said. I was focused on myself and evolving from high school into what I wanted to do with my life for college. So what ended up happening is my friend's mom ended up finally telling me the dynamic of what happened when she was dealing with him. And she was like, yeah, he ended up taking her to get a tattoo and doing stuff, you know, that was basically making her be rebellious, but it wasn't her own decisions, because she was allowing him to influence her. And he was only a year older than me and 2 years older than her. So I was like, well, maybe, or a year, a few months or something like that. So I was like, well, maybe I shouldn't deal with him, you know. But then he took me to meet his parents and his family, and I really gravitated to his mom and his sister and his dad, and I was cool with them. So I guess I stuck around more because I gained comfortability with his family. And he had put on this smile and facade as if he was, you know, sincerely a good person and wanted to pursue me in ways that I felt like maybe I needed to have experience in order to understand relationship. And I wasn't thinking too far ahead on like if he was who I was going to be with for the rest of my life and all that, because I never envisioned the whole repeating my parents' high school sweetheart thing. I wasn't trying to reject it either, but I just felt like I don't really know you like that. Like, my parents really knew each other for a period of time that was, you know, allowing them to grow to the point of, okay, yeah, I'm going to come back and marry this woman. But this particular guy, I felt like he was still, well, I didn't feel like, I found out that he was still like dealing with other people, girls at the school that weren't necessarily friends, but they were like good associates, would even tell me like, are you dealing with this particular person? I don't think you should. This particular person does this, does that. And I don't like believing everything people say. So I would question him and just ask him what he was actually doing, so that I wasn't dealing with somebody who was trying to cross me or, you know, whatever. So then kind of find out he might have still been dealing with the girl who, you know, I ended up calling her my best friend, but we called each other cousins in high school because I didn't really like I said, I wasn't focused on friendship, relationship, all that stuff was not, that was secondary to my primary focus. So we called each other cousins. That's the most thing that we did, because of the fact that, like I said, her mom had took me in when I had started doing track and everything, and I was around them a lot outside of school. When the stuff started happening, like so basically she was doing things in the way she wanted to do. She had other friends, she had people in school that she was around, and I can't really say, I don't know what she was doing. Like, people would tell rumors about her doing things that she shouldn't have been doing to be fast and all that, and I don't like to hear all that naysaying stuff about people. If that person is not choosing to talk about their business, I don't like people coming to me and saying, you know, your cousin doing da, 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 and that's all I would hear. And so I used to be like, look, whatever she got going on is her business. You feel me? And I did tell her sometimes maybe she should kind of slow down with who she's talking to, who she's dealing with. But she wanted this attention. She wanted the attention that she was seeking. You can't make anybody, I don't care if they're your friend, your sibling, your other half, whatever. You cannot make any other person outside of your own self do or be anything that they're not going to choose to be. If your friend, and they're your best friend, is doing something that is a detriment to themselves, the best you can do is tell them, like, I don't think you should keep doing this. Like, why are you doing this? And that's what I kept doing, is I wanted to allow her to go through her own lessons, but actually acknowledge that she was going through them so she could grow through them. You know, that's the best I could do, is be supportive of the fact that she was free. And I was a free spirit, so I completely understood her. But it was at the same time where I understood that at this point I was playing a role of like a sister to her. And I just wanted to see her do better, you know, for herself. And like I said, I was a year ahead of her in school. So I didn't have time to be too focused on what she had going on. But like I said, because it was rumored that we were like family, it was going around to me all the time what was going on. So at one point when she had gotten a fight, for instance, you know, sometimes I get regretful for not putting my, like, you know, myself on the line and jumping out there and laying on the ground with them. But they weren't even really jumping her for real. It was these two fat girls, and they just basically laid on the ground and on top of her. Her brother comes flying into the thing, and everybody's just like on the ground, swimming on this dirty ass cafeteria floor. And my mentalist looks at it like, she's gonna get herself out of this situation. But the issue I had with her is the fact that she put herself in that situation. When you put yourself in certain situations, you have to understand the consequences of of your actions. And yeah, after the fact, I think she was more so bitter about the fact that I didn't go lay on the ground with them. But by the time I had even got over there, I was like, what the freak is going on? I didn't even know it was her. So I was like, so what happened? You know what I'm saying? Like, what the fuck, what even was going on for these girls to want to do this to you? And that's my thing, is you don't be knowing what people be doing when they not around you. So I don't like to make assumptions. I like to see what's going on, arm's length, what's going on with everybody in the situation first, before I get myself involved in something that I don't even know what's going on. And that's what I was saying earlier about, like, my father teaching me to defend myself and learn how to fight my own battles. If you create a war, or if you create that type of energy, anticipate knowing how to defend yourself when that shit backfires. That is the whole thing that I knew about a value and morals and certain ethical principles that I had. Those are foundational principles. So, you know, at the end of the day, you can't expect, and I wouldn't expect, even if my sisters are near me, if they, you know, choose to jump in, cool. But at the end of the day, I don't expect nobody to do nothing for me that I have to defend myself for. That's why when I was in relationships and men were abusive, it wasn't no calling my brothers. It wasn't no calling my father and my uncles and everybody. My father could have definitely called some people in Chicago, but I never addressed this stuff to the men in my family, because number one, I'm not about to sit there and try to put my siblings in a predicament where they don't have a father, because my father lashed out when he found out what was happening to me. Now, I could have did it, and, you know, maybe that would have been a better way to go about it, was to tell my father, and I learned that later. But ultimately, I took to heart that whole defending yourself thing, you know, because I wanted to be able to see if I could make better ways out of my actions in life. I didn't like to do unnecessary things. So pretty much after that fight thing she had going that time, there was another time where I wasn't even with her, and I think she went through having to fight again. So it was the places that she was putting herself in, it was the people she was hanging around, and it was the things that she was involving herself in and doing that put her in these predicaments. So I used to be like, you're a strong person, because at the end of the day, you don't understand why you're choosing to make the decisions you're making, and you don't understand why the people you gravitate to, but you are to learn lessons from these things. I said, you came out of that fight with no scratch, with two big girls literally laying on you. They weren't even like hitting her. They were just from what I saw, it was a bunch of people on the floor, laying on the floor, trying to figure out how to get the fuck off the floor at this point. But you might have seen some arms go over this way and stuff. But all right, and the pulling hair, I never understood. That's not a fight. What is that? So I used to be like, yeah, this is just weirdness going on right here, and just don't do this again. Whatever you did to make those girls feel like they needed to do that, like, just avoid that. And it might have been something with like boys, because she was a pretty female, and I know how that is. So I just was like, you don't have to entertain every boy that want to be in your face, for one. You also don't have to entertain the people who have a problem with you because boys are in your face. that's something I never did. And throughout moving different places, when people had a problem with me because a boy liked me, I'm not about to fight you over no boy. Girl, if you don't go ahead and go ask your mother something and learn something about like being a female, like, it just was certain stuff I just didn't entertain, y'all. I just couldn't hide. I don't know what was wrong with me as a child, but it was something that just didn't allow me to engage in dumb stuff. Certain stuff was dumb. Violence between black people and black children, I never condoned, even as a black child. It's dumb. I'm sorry. I'm not going to agree. And if we do want to fight, let's really like put kids in a ring and let them duke it out. Like, let them actually get that off of their chest. Let children be able to be in a safe space where they can get their anger off about, he said I was dumb and, you know, whatever. Let them friends fight. Let them little boys learn how to get that off in a ring, though, before they get outside and get a gun in their hands and want to go kill somebody because he said that his head was small in the 8th grade and he always held a grudge against him because he said his head was small and he embarrassed him in school. It be little stuff like that that make people grow older and just be hurt. Just be hurt. Be insecure. Be confused about their relationships with other people. Be confused about how to discern if somebody is your real friend and who's not. Like, obviously you can look back and see, okay, if this person was a class clown and he always wanted to talk about people in class, obviously he had insecurities of his own, but he wasn't a genuinely good person if he chose to be a bully like that. You know, recognize what a bully looks like, what a bully is, and understand people who were also going through any form of like manipulations or anything like that, because everybody's childhood is different. That's just like with my friend. I'm telling you that me and her, I consider her my best friend, because we had went through a lot together. After her mother chose to be a part of, helping me through high school after that year, it was like, and the most she did, like I said, was take me home after track practice and make sure that I wasn't ever sitting outside or just hanging out in the school or whatever. But it was some other things that occurred even with myself. But I had been attracting older guys and all of that by the time I was in my 11th and 12th grade year. So there was this guy that came to McDonald's and we ended up being really cool. But he was like 24, 26, something like that. And he actually used to work at the McDonald's. So I told him, like, I'm still like 16, something like that. 16, 17 by the time I met this dude. So stuff like that was like, based on laws, I was too young. So I ain't want to put nobody in no predicament where they going to jail and I'm with the strength of talking to me. So I'm like, we can be cool, but I ain't doing no boyfriend, girlfriend stuff. I ain't having sex with you. Don't ex me. No. It's a no. It was always a no for me. And I had no problem with respecting my body as my temple and saying no. But sometimes as little girls and little boys, we had, attraction to people. We started to learn about our emotions and our hormones, and we started to learn. Around these ages is when we started to really learn, because of the fact that we knew we were going into a transitional phase of adulthood, in which the society placed us to believe was the time frame that we were allowed to engage in these adult activities. It's not like a lot of other places where I know that, and I've learned over the years in other countries, other places, girls is getting married and having kids at 13. I didn't know that. I was born here in the United States of America, so I don't know, and I didn't know that it wasn't like what I thought it was across the world. Across the world, girls that were developing and hitting puberty were getting the attention that grown women were getting, and then that helped me to understand why it was a lot of older men who wanted to date younger women and this and that and the third. But that's also something that I looked at as sometimes being used as a form of manipulation, because that someone younger than you has a lot more to experience in order to reach a certain point in their mental. But some older men, I felt like, knew and understood stages. And some of them just be waiting for that young lady they're attracted to get that of age so that they can go and invade her life. But it just, I wanted to be able to be given the opportunity to be able to entertain men in my own age group. No more than 7 years span difference. And that was just how I was at that time, because I was a lot younger. I'm like, come on, just hold on for a second. But after meeting the guy at McDonald's, we became friends. Then I met this other guy, because at my school, they had a night school for adults to come and finish their high school diploma and take adult trade classes at the high school I went to, Glen Burnie Evening Night School. So I met another guy there because of, staying after school and stuff. And he was older. Long story short, he would send me all of these, like, very nasty pictures, poems, about erotic stuff. And I don't know, he was just going in. He was very philosophical, and he would speak about things, on that adult level. Now, I hadn't been writing I was still actually writing my, like, erotic literature, but like I said, it was my writing. I didn't act these things out in real life. So when he started to send me pictures and talk about ways he wanted to do certain things and this and that and the third, I just be like, all right, this is getting a little too adulterated for me. So one time I was gonna go to his house so that I could talk to him more in person about, just boundaries and limitations and expectations of talking and dating. Go to the house, and his older brother's there. The older brother, like, literally, that was just a violation of all types of codes. All I want to say is, it was like this betrayal thing with brothers. Like, it was always like, if I talk to a guy, somehow his older brother wants to find a way to then also talk to me. It was always, this happened to me. Let me see, 1, 2, 3. This happened to me like 3 or 4 times. And it was like a pattern. And I'm not this type of person, so I would never actually entertain dealing with this person's brother. But it would make me uncomfortable with dealing with that person, because I got to deal with their brother trying to, like, it's a lot. And I can't speak on the behalf of men or women who do this, but I know for a fact, my sisters ain't never got to worry about me trying to date nobody that they dating. I'm not about to be doing that. I don't have time to be, well, let me get in my sister business and see if I can date the guy that she dating. Like, you don't have nothing else to do? I was just like, why are these guys like this? But I digress, because I can't speak for no man. I don't know why men were doing that. But I had also became cool with another girl who was a couple years older than me at the school. And she had a girlfriend in, like, West Virginia or something like that. And her brother was cool with my best friend. So we all ended up being cool. But what ended up happening, and there was another guy too that was at the school that I was really, really close with. He had a little bit of feminine tendencies, but he ultimately said he wasn't, into men. And he supported me throughout getting out of school. He came for my prom and all of that. So he ended up being a really close friend of mine. We used to go to the Paradox together. He drove because he was older than me. So he used to drive. And before I was comfortable with driving and drinking, which is still illegal, I don't condone that. But they had these things called four locals and stuff like that. And we used to just be, just cutting up in high school. It was out of hand. And I never forget those nights going to the Paradox, because it always made me feel like I was connecting with people, like, outside of environments that weren't allowing you to be free. Like, that's one thing about I guess, like, the party scene, club scene type of environments. Like, although things can get pretty out of hand, of course, if there's no regulatory, rules and safety measures and precautions. But when it's a place where everybody is there for the same reasons and on one accord, a party could be fun, period. Now, of course, there was drama sometimes at the Paradox. I ain't really I don't, like I said, I cast away a lot of negativity. So more than likely I was gone before all that happened. But the times that I was there, I used to just like just being in an environment where I could dance. I could see other people dancing. We could just flow. I could talk to people, meet new people, just vibe, you know? So that was a big thing for me when I started to get used to going out and just being in like the party scene, you know, as a teenager and and in my early 20s. So it was mostly in my teen years though that stuff like this was going on. Because by the time I was 17 when I was kicked out, I moved into my friend's mother's house when my father decided that he didn't no longer want me to be in there. And I never did tell this story, so just real quick, because I want to cancel all the confusion about why my father made the decision to say, hey, you got to go ahead and get the hell out. So I was 17. I was working at the hospital. Like I said, I had 2 jobs. I was working at McDonald's and I was working at the hospital. And this was ultimately my decision because I wanted to be able to learn how to start making money, budgeting money, having money in my hand to know how to process it, and finding ways to use it, you know, to my advantage and to my benefit, and to help myself to the next level, you know, of school. And that's how I learned how to pay out of pocket for my first 1 or 2 years or semesters of college, is I paid out of pocket from working. But you know, I was at school. My first college that I went to after I had went to school at Anne Arundel College in high school was Morgan. So my freshman year at Morgan State University in Baltimore City, I was able to commute back and forth because my father did give me his old car at first. Got in an accident at my senior year of high school. This guy literally hit and ran. He kept going. But he later then came back. And yeah, because my car had did a spin in the middle of, where was I at? I know I was on North Avenue, but it was, I'm trying to think of what street that was where I hit the pole. Because I literally turned, I was making a turn, but when I was, you know, going, he was coming this way. So my car was going this way. And his car was coming this way. Instead of stopping at the light, he literally smacked the back near my gas tank. He just missed my gas tank. I was in a little 1993 Acura Integra. My car, he was in a Ford Explorer. My car did like this and hit the pole. Thankfully, the pole didn't fall. And I was in the car with my friend. So I was in shock. This was my first accident as a young driver. And I was just like, he hit me and he just kept going. I was so hurt. But pretty much after that accident and incident, I had, fortunately I didn't like get shocked to the point where I didn't want to keep driving. And I knew I needed to keep driving in order to keep jobs and keep going back and forth to where I was going. Now I could have got on the bus and, you know, transitioned to that, but, why? I still had the car. So after that car was totaled, I had looked and seen, I asked my mom to help me get a loan, but I ended up getting approved for my own first car loan. So once I got approved for my first car loan, I went and I found a vehicle. I got so my first real vehicle that I got under my own name was a Nissan Altima. I think it was a 05. Yeah, 05 or 06, one of those, Nissan Altima. So that was my first car that I got with my own loan, with my own name, under my own name. My mother didn't have to co-sign none of that. She wasn't going to anyway. So thankfully, I got away with, you know, getting my own first loan. And my goal, based on what my father had taught me, was to pay that thing off as soon as I could. But, you know, in the process of doing that, in the process of paying off my loan, I learned how to budget money. I learned how to manage accounts with my bank account and all of that. And this was still in my like 11th grade. Yeah, 11th. No, this was my 12th grade year. Yeah, because that's when I had gotten into that car accident. So my 12th grade year of high school, I had to learn how to balance my money, budget my money, and incorporate these bills that I was having. So I had the bill from my car note, and then I had converted from, of course, since my father kicked me out, I converted from his phone plan to my own. And what else was it? I was living in their house, so I had to either do chores or compensate them for my, living expense because I was going into adulthood. Now, the reason he kicked me out, like I said, I'm gonna go ahead and give this story, is because I was working at the hospital and I worked from 4 to midnight, right? And during the day I was in school. And it was like, my first year I was going into college. So I had to do that commute, and I had to get to school as early as possible. I had to leave to get to school, but I had to leave early as possible. There was a humidifier in the basement. That's where my bedroom was in the basement. And I don't know, for some reason that summer, it was like the basement was having, it was like getting moist all the time down there. I don't remember what was going on with the HVAC system or whatever, but ultimately they had bought a humidifier for the time being until they had got the issue resolved. And my room was right there near the washer and dryer area, and I was supposed to turn the humidifier on every day before I left, but I forgot this particular day. I was in a rush because I got up late, and it wasn't nobody else's responsibility to take me to school. It wasn't like middle school where I wake up late and mommy could take me to school. I had to get up and get in the car and take my own self to school. So that day I rushed out and I didn't turn the humidifier on. And I had to go straight to work after I got out of class. So my dad was like mad because when I came home after work, I got off at like midnight. I come in the house, my dad just chilling on the couch and everything. He, like he typically does. But I'm like, why is he awake this late? Next thing you know, he like, Brei, come in here. And so I go in there and I'm like, Lord, what did I do? So he like, why you ain't turning the humidifier on? And I just was like, I forgot. I completely forgot. I was like, I apologize, and everything like that. And he was like, that's not going to fix the situation. Now the fucking basement all, basically, the carpet in the basement had gotten really moist and wet, and, that can create mildew and this and third. That stuff costs a lot of money. I ain't know that. I ain't own no house. So I was like, oh, Lord, I done messed up now. But the reason I got kicked out is because he called me a B. He was like, something B-I-T-C-H. Why the F you ain't this, that, and the third after I told you to do this? And, it just became, it was some other stuff being said. But all I remember was hearing him calling me a B. So I'm just like, I understand that. But why I gotta be a bitch? And he was like, who the F you cursing at? And I'm like, you literally just called me a bitch. Like, we're not about to just skip over that. And so pretty much I was in the wrong in his opinion because I was talking back and all of that. But I'm like, I don't feel as though you got to call me out my name because I forgot to turn the humidifier on. Like, obviously I forgot. I didn't forget intentionally. But that's pretty much why that turned into him saying, oh, well, since you got so much to say in response to what I'm saying, you can get the fuck out. And so I was like, well, I guess, time for me to get out then. Because, we used to bump heads a lot anyway. So at this point, I was just like, yeah, I think it's probably right. Maybe I should get the fuck out. So that day, I grabbed my stuff and I was dating. Like I said, I was dating a guy and I had met his mother and everything already by that time. And I had my friend's mother who was like always, her door was always open for me. And then, of course, I could go with my grandmother and everybody in Baltimore. So I was like, well, I got other options. And then my aunt that passed away last year, she definitely always opened her place up for me. She stayed in Penn North though, which is a senior citizen home on Pennsylvania Avenue and North Avenue in Baltimore. But she basically, that's the main place I would go, is to my Aunt Louise's house. And the guy I was dating, I stayed over there often, when his mom would let me. And my best friend's mother, like she's the main place that I went to though, because she made a room for me and everything in her house. So that's where I mainly hosted myself. And then I would go and stay and with my grandma and with my aunt and just different stuff like that. But that's why me and my father had our falling out when he chose to kick me out. Now, fast forward, of course, years later, he always said you always could have came back and you would have been able to come back with no problems. And he's like, you know that, right? And I was like, no, I didn't know that. And so we hashed it out. I'm grown. I'm much grown now. So we were able to, me and my father have been able to talk about these things. And that's a growing thing between me and my dad. But ultimately, I'm never going to be the type of child that's like so mad at my parents that I would never go back to them and apologize for any wrongs that I've done and just, you know, ask for their forgiveness, because they're my parents. They're the ones who brought me into this world, regardless of whether or not they want me here or not, or want me around or not, you know. So that's just how that went. And ultimately, I was already independent anyway, minded, and I was trying to establish myself. So I was like, maybe it's best that I do go out here, you know. So 17, I'm out here in these streets and, you know, staying over friends' houses. Boyfriend mother got me over there, and, you know, I had fun with him though. Like, me and him, like, outside of when he started being abusive, before that, he took me fishing. Like, he really was good at fishing, and he really was passionate about it. And we used to go fishing together and just we was cool. Like, we had a real, like, friendship outside of the whole boyfriend girlfriend thing. And when things got hectic, the reason things got complicated with me and him is because of the boyfriend girlfriend, the title thing, the labels. Like, when I feel like relationships get to the point where labels come into play, there has to be real understanding and transparency and communication between both people effectively, that we're on the same page. We are doing this with the same intentions for one another. And that's a part of why I feel like foundation of friendship is important in any relationship, especially an intimate relationship. Because if we're not even friends, why would I want to spend the rest of my life with you? Like, I don't understand that. I don't understand why people would just get married off the basis of money or tangible things when y'all can just be cool and do that. You don't got to go sign no papers for that. But to each his own. So once again, I digress. But oh, I hope I got enough for this side. Yeah, so that's why my dad kicked me out, and ultimately I know he wouldn't do that again, but I was kind of rebellious because I just didn't understand certain things, and I questioned everything. I was a definite why kid. I was always, why? What's that mean? What are you telling me this for? What is this? Why is this important? Why does this pertain to me? And I mean, even in school, I didn't drop out of school because I wanted to understand why I was learning some of that stuff. Y'all got me in here wasting 12 years of my life. I mean, you know, whatever, more than 12 years, but you know what I'm saying? It's supposed to be 12th grade, 12 grades, but we are in school, it seems like forever. But I pretty much took advantage of the opportunity to being out on my own, and me and my best friend, whose mother took me in and she gave a room for me and everything, me and her was going out looking for places to dance at, because that's what she wanted to do. She wanted to do Bad Girls Club, she wanted to do entertainment, dance, different things like that. I didn't know what the heck I wanted to do. I just wanted to, I knew I wanted to run a business. So going to school, my degree major that I took up was in business administration. That was my initial degree interest, because I wanted to understand how to fund a business, prepare a business, plan for a business. And I thought that having the degree was necessary. So that's what I went to school for initially, because I wanted to open up a cafe. I was always like, I want to open up my cafe and this and that and the third. So that was what I always wanted to do since high school. I didn't want to be the chef in there. I just wanted to open up my cafe. But my also wanted to do my writing and eventually publish my books. I wanted to get into acting and doing more dancing, being more involved in these things was always an interest of my own. And I just was trying to find the best route to doing it, because I didn't really have any guidance on how to do the things I wanted to do. So when you're in this point, and this is a message definitely to parents, this is why it's important to be engaged in the growth of your children's lives. Like, see what they're interested in, what they like to do, where their talent is, where their mind is, where their goals are, and help them establish. Like, don't just have kids and then just be like, all right, go figure life out, hon. You're 18 now. Go figure it out. Like, what? I don't understand. Why do people bring children in the world to do that? Stop. So, ultimately, once I realized that I didn't want to, that I wasn't going to have an easy route opening my business. You know, I didn't have a silver spoon. Money wasn't handed to me. Wasn't falling out the sky. You know, I had to learn how to make do with what I had. But what I wasn't doing was saving enough. All them jobs, all that stuff I was doing, the jobs I was working, I wasn't saving money enough. I started partying too much and being wasteful and, you know, entertaining the people I was around. My friend wanted to do certain things and she'd be like, oh, go with me to do this because I don't want to do this alone. And, you know, me trying to be a supportive friend. And I ain't gonna lie, I was interested in dancing too because I like to dance. So I was like, oh yeah, I'll go with you. But once I seen what the dance arena was, and we were only, 18, 19 years old when we started to do this club scene in DC. And we went to, the first place we went to was Macombo. I ain't even about to touch on too deeply about those things. All I know is the owner was also an anesthesiologist. So I was interested to understand, you know, more about that because I was working at the hospital. And I was like, what does the anesthesiologist do? So, hey, what's up? I definitely was like, trying to learn, like, okay, so what does the anesthesiologist do? And he on a strip club and he doing that. I was like, all right, so you really out here getting it. So I just allowed myself to be a student during this time, even though I was, you know, dancing. And yeah, because my father, he taught me some things, but it was a lot of other men I would meet who were older that taught me some things too, because of just being who they are, just showing who they were in life. And I was always wanting to have my own business. So I paid attention to men and women who were older than me who did things that I was interested in. And so I was like, okay, so how do you run the club? You know, and I was just paying attention to the things that he was giving. He was giving me offering. He was allowing me to hear his business, you know, and telling me how he established his business and how he got to that point where he was able to open up that club. And I can't speak on anyone's intentions, so I can't say what his intentions were or anything. But I do know that when I asked him questions about the business side of things and about becoming a doctor, he didn't lead me astray with his responses. As a person, as out of many of the men I dealt with, he definitely told me things that were honestly, I feel as though useful, because even to this day, it's still useful information. So I thank him for that. And shouts out to the owner of that club. But I was trying to get into the Army at the same time. Now, she was supposed to be going in the Army too, but her mom was trying to help us both get into the military. I ended up, you know, passing my ASVAB, had a good enough score to be able to get into something better than what I chose. The reason I chose 88 Mike is because she was saying that I could get, it was a critical skills, critical thinking MOS, and she was saying that I could get a bonus for that. And I could have used that bonus. My whole goal was to use that bonus to fund my next year of college. So I was like, oh, if I get the bonus, then I'll have a job, I'll have an income, I'll have, you know, they tell you in the military, when you get ready to join the military, all of these benefits that you get to be able to assist yourself, right? So to me, that looked like glitz and glam, because I'm like, I don't got nothing. I'm, you know, basically living house to house and out my car in different places. So I'm like, yeah, definitely. Plus, on top of that, I forgot to mention, the guy I was dating, me and his sister was out there being wild. She was a lot younger than me, and I didn't want to keep influencing her in the wrong ways, because we went to the mall and we still in jewelry. It was just ridiculous. So, you know, ultimately, we were juveniles at that time. So, after that was resolved, and I was banned from the mall or whatever in Annapolis, I'm sitting up there crying like, why didn't we just keep going? We should have just definitely kept going. I ain't gonna lie, we should have definitely kept going. But her mother and his mother came and got me and her, and Yeah, it was worse for me than it would have been for her because she was younger than me. So that's why I was all in my feelings about it, because I'm like, why did I just sit here and do this dumb mess? You know, that was not where my mind was, to do dumb stuff. So pretty much after I realized that I could have messed up my record and all that, and my friend's mother helped me get into the Army, I felt like that was my only option to repair what was going on. So I joined the Army. And once I did that, I was able to start, you know, getting a taste of having the funds and stuff I needed. And the guy I was dating, I don't know what he was going on. I don't know if he was trying to compete or what, but he cut off his dreads and he like, I'm going to the Navy. And I'm like, oh, for real? All right. Like, whatever, you know, you feel is truly for you. But I'm like, don't do something because you think that, don't do something because you see somebody else doing it. Do it because it helps you or it benefits you. I didn't join the Army because nobody else was doing it. I joined the Army because what they told me I could receive from it, and I chose to internalize what I could use it for my benefit. As far as the assistance with college, to pay off any loans and debt, because I foreseen that obviously college is going to bring debt. So I was like, okay, if I put myself in position, I can be able to be successful and I can be able to become a doctor, which is what I decided after I realized that I didn't need a business degree. I changed my major. But what ended up happening was my friends, like I said, mom was from Georgia. So she was like, you know, basically I told her, I said, I'm interested in going to Georgia. Because even my dad was like, go to Georgia. I have an uncle down there. I have family, aunts, and different type of family down there too in Atlanta. So I was like, I could go down there and establish something new. So once they all put that in perspective and I looked into it myself, I did my own research. I don't never just take what somebody say and run with it. So when they told me these things and they offered up the interest of the South, going down there for school and transitioning from Morgan to a different school down there, I was initially trying to go to Spelman or Clark. Clark Atlanta University was where I was going to ultimately try to go, because it was because Spelman was an all-girls school and I didn't want to go to an all-girls school. So I was like, all right, so I got accepted into Clark. I'm about to get ready to go to the school. They was a private institution and they were not about to accept my National Guard transfer request to be able to pay for school. And it was just too many stipulations for me to go to Clark and them not accepting the funds to pay for school. And $14,000 a semester is a lot to me. Versus Morgan, I was only paying $3,000 something out of pocket per semester. Like, that's a huge difference. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to have to look and see what other schools to go to. So I looked into Fort Valley State University, and I got accepted there too. I got, what else I looked at? I think I looked at Georgia Southern, UGA, and then Georgia State. And then so after I got accepted to all the schools, I asked my mother to take me down there so that I could be able to start looking for a place. You know, I could have went by myself, but me and my mom, we was still close, so I just was like, can you help me get established in Georgia? You know? So we went down there. I looked for an apartment. Now, I had already been looking at apartments online when I was up here. So after I had been looking for apartments and stuff up here, and I seen a few places I wanted to look at, I also got in touch with a realtor down there, and she put me around some places too. I was going to get a townhome or start off getting a house down there, but then I was like, I don't even know yet how to pay a bill for an apartment. So I was like, let me just get a little apartment to start off with, and I'll, you know, elevate to a house when it's time for it. So she pretty much, when we was down there, at this point, Friends and Ends is on pause for a second, because I'm talking about this transition that I was taking, because I was putting all relationships on pause anyway, because I was trying to get myself established, you know. And yeah, so I found a place on Cheshire Bridge Road, Buckhead, Atlanta. That was where I got my very first apartment. I got approved for my spot and everything. And because first I was going to live on Briarcliff, but I ain't get into that apartment because of what was on my record from that incident at JCPenney's in Annapolis. So that's when I also learned about, you know, expungement and how that works and everything like that. And so I got into the apartment down there, on Cheshire Bridge Road. It was like only 5 minutes away from Lenox Mall. It was like 15 minutes away from Georgia State, which is the school that I chose to go to. And yeah, I just basically was like ready to take on this exit. So when it was time for me to finally actually leave, I told the guy that I was dating up here, I'm like, look, I'm about to move and take on this route of my life down Georgia. And yeah, and when he wanted to do the Navy thing and it didn't work out, pretty much I had went to camp to basic training for the Army that same summer. And I like to do this thing where I just free my mind of attachments when I'm going into into stuff like that. I had to put my mind into the mental of, I'm going into a training environment. I'm going to be around people I don't know, and I'm going to have to be allowing myself to be vulnerable to the situation. I watched videos about what basic training was about. I asked people questions about their experience from basic training in the military. And since I had did in Ricerstown is where my recruiting station was, and that's where my I had did this thing where before I went to basic training for like 6 months, I was going and doing drills at this particular place in Ricerstown. So once I got to the point where that particular place was allowing me to what am I trying to say? Be comfortable with getting used to waking up 4 a.m, doing PT, getting used to training my body, training my mind. By the time the summertime came, I literally separated myself from everybody for like a month and just allowed myself to come to a place where I was getting used to being away from the people I love, being away from what I know, what I see, and what I'm doing. And that was all she wrote, because I really literally just like programmed my mind to be like, I'm going to war or something like that, even though it was just basic training. But the point is, I programmed my mind to just deal with the fact that I'm not going to be doing things based on my freedom or what I want. And I understood that I was doing what I was doing because I wanted to do it for the bigger picture. I wanted to take the time out to go and be in the military so that I could have what I was saying about paying for school, making sure my debts were paid, and making sure that I was going to be able to put myself on a good foot to prepare for what I wanted to do with my life, as far as being a doctor and eventually opening my business and running my businesses. And that's what I initially wanted to do. You know what I'm saying? Like, I really wanted to. But I realized too, when I was in the military, after getting all them shots, this is where I decided I'm not going to only do conventional medicine. I didn't reject wanting to do conventional medicine though. Like, I still wanted to understand, the clinical environment, the clinical medical experience, but I also wanted to understand more about natural medicine. And at that time, natural medicine wasn't like really, really popular, to be honest, over this side on the East Coast. But there were natural medical schools established over the West Coast. So I had did a little bit of research about these things, and I was like, okay, I would set plans for them, but I wouldn't necessarily entertain them too much. After I thought about it, did my research, I set the research aside, and I focused on what was at hand, which was getting through undergraduate college, right? Of course, along the way, I wanted to enjoy myself in school too, and have the experience of college. So my first round of college, my friend I met at the McDonald's, and friends I met at the hospital and stuff were people that I kept as friends even going into college my first year at Morgan. But by the time I went to Georgia, I had to start fresh when it came to the friend world, because I didn't know anybody in Georgia. So, except for family, but none of them were like around my age or anything. I don't know where I put that thing at. So yeah, I'm gonna take a break real quick, and then I'm gonna come back on here and finish about my transition to Georgia from Maryland. And this was my freshman, sophomore year of college.